My target is to get humanity prioritised by using humanities, literature, art and history, with particularly history being a lesson learned from mistakes. As suggested by my former MP, in a meeting with myself and an inspector who came up from the Care Quality Commission for a 3-hour meeting from the town area, and it's a long way, they did suggest in a letter to the Chief Executive, with my refreshing ideas, I did briefings free of charge to introduce humanity to a crisis line in which my current MP is doing an inquiry into the role. Now, basically, I would like, as an introduction to this, the crisis line, to understand the word Kundalini, and I am seeking certain rationales from the crisis line and otherwise. I find a closed door when I ask for information, and I would like the definition of the word karma to be looked at. I wish to put an end to oppression by asking the permission of the Director of Nonsense and Comedy to support my spirituality by sitting the caricature of my intended care coordinator, who I don't approve of, behind my back, wearing a burqa. My intellect and imagination has invented a caricature, and I won't name her, in a Shirley Temple outfit, with an oversized dildo with the dialogue, "Give me a man. Peace to be continued." I will introduce further humanities. That's literature, art and history. Nothing has been learned from history. It's very difficult to communicate one way. I feel violated, and I feel like a piece of meat left in the cupboard, and my needs aren't met. I feel like patient number 6, with a reference to Patrick McGowan's character in The Prisoner. I've been denied individuality and expression. I was on a panel of 14 patients from entire Lancashire, advising the system how to run. But I feel I need to advise that system how to run, because there is no result at all when a patient who is on the panel comes out with the comment that patients are left to their own devices to improve with no therapy in a lockup. That's not acceptable, because staff are enraging with the inhumanity, and they interpret the emotions, the negative emotions they give you, to your humanity, as illness. It is their misinterpretation and their sociopathic reaction as a Nazi soldier who has a reaction to burning Holocaust victims' smell. Now, I have a parallel, exactly that. as an injustice, I smashed my foot in how many places, it's documented. Had bolts put in, no inquiry. An unavoidable self-defence is confirmed by a good nurse who's reliable. Minimum force unavoidable self-defence. I left somebody unable to breathe properly. I took a lot of provocation and I was maliciously treated and I couldn't help it. It was inhuman. 20 years of schooling and they put you on the day shift. Bob Dylan line. Now, there is a manager on the ward named after the man whose deathbed cry was, "Oh my God, what have I done?" She said she was going to complain about calling her a liar. Now, that is a dictionary definition, and she was witnessed. Now, she sent me to Peop for apparent altercation, emailed by a member of staff at the door. I have 8 witnesses to say that it wasn't the member of staff who was hearing on the conversation between myself and another patient, and he ran in panicking at the hearing, and she confirmed it wasn't him that emailed her, and she confirmed it wasn't an old man past retirement age who was there, and I have 8 patients as witnesses that was nobody else there. Now, there are lies on my notes. Now, Ormskirk, who I sent a letter of praise for the friendliness and the homeliness that went parliamentary into the chief executive and beyond. It came on the care plan, and it's not their fault. It came from previous notes that I have a long history of assaulting staff. Well, the Violence Reduction and Prevention Officer at the Harbour has emailed me advocate. The videos don't match the notes, and everything was self-defence. Now, when 5 people came in inexplicably on camera to a seclusion on camera, for the 4th time I was put in for being assaulted and not retaliating before they knew I could retaliate. 4 people hurt me back. The man that put me in seclusion for being attacked and not retaliating stamped on the foot that needed the operation and inverted his fist and was going to punch me in the stomach. I nutted him. It was self-defence. He fell back in the shower and turned it on. It was like the psycho scene, but I couldn't help it. I only had a quarter of an inch moving it. I could have reacted to the 4. Now, they know I could have slaughtered them, but I didn't. Instead, I made a display with a disabled foot. I disabled the bowling unit seclusion by kicking a hole in the brick wall. Now, I suspect it's gone back as far as 2012, this corrupted notes, because when I was on Ward 18, a whole ward full of dying patients witnessed a clinical practitioner come prancing on the ward. I said to her a name. She looked round, grimaced, "I'm not talking to you, you're ill," sped up and walked into the doorpost and became angry. Now, she had me guarded into my room because she was angry. Now, the following day, something equally innocuous happened. All the ward saw me politely asking for paracetamol for 40 minutes, and she lost the rag and ordered Luke to guard me in my room. I missed 2 meals, and my daughter had to buy me a pizza. I was in hard water. Now on shift change, I deliberately came out. I'm 5'5", and Luke, I'm told, his ex-Coldstream and maybe the size of it and massive. He was stood there with a U-knot, like with folded arms. Now, when the staff were coming out, I deliberately timed it to come out of the room and said, Luke, do you fancy taking alternate punches for charity? Delighted, he turned to the staff who were coming out. He just challenged me to a fight. I said, I didn't. I offered to make money for charity. He said, I used to knock people out for a living. I replied, well, that's one up for me. I know what you did now. You don't know what I did. The whole ward saw him wobble to his knees at the diagonal of the Ward 18 and fall to his knees at the toilet door. I didn't touch him. Now, the following day, I was rushed out directly from the briefing room where they couldn't see me by 3 members of staff, Stuart, Daniel and Anthony. Stuart grabbed hold of my arm, pulled me over, bashed my head on the wall. Stuart grabbed hold of my feet, Anthony grabbed hold of my feet, so I couldn't move. And Daniel incessantly punched me in the stomach for 3 or 4 minutes, witnessed by everybody, the whole ward. When I got up, I said, what did you do that for? Stuart said, you were aggressive, you took your watch off. Now, a couple of years later, Steve Moretti, on Calderwood in Blackburn, confirmed he remembered taking the watch to the cobblers on Thursby Road for a new battery for me. It has stopped. The nutters. Now, when I was on a ward named after the man who promised the land fit for heroes, shortly before the NHS was founded, in a completely different spirit it is now, I was sectioned after about 3 years. Now, presumably I was sectioned for treatment, and Queen Jane approximately prescribed me vitamin D for people who don't get enough sunlight. So presumably he thinks I'm a creature of the night, and I have the teeth to suggest I'm a vampire. So I kept asking for my vampire pal, and now I'm going my hair to a real If I'm going to be a vampire, I'm going to look like one. I think I'm reasonable to expect from a psyche ward, psyche means soul and mind, to have my soul satisfied and my intellect stimulated if I'm to be in hospital. I would expect it to be following the NHS directive, which is put the patient first. If it don't do me any good, what's the point in being there? And I saw examples of human beings at Ormskirk, and I saw examples of human beings at Moss U. Now at Moss U, I refused to go in the CPA when 2 members of my care team were there. One member of the care team was described as a lovely woman, and I agree with that. And my care team were described as reprehensible by Moss U, and I agree with the description. But the other woman responsible for that adjective, because by a process of elimination it can't be a lovely woman, was my care coordinator, who demanded to know for 13 minutes what I'd done with a chessboard the size of a large room with pieces 5 feet high for 13 minutes, embarrassing a beetroot by a colour. She was losing it. Now, She thought I magicked it away from an inescapable garden. And she called up a sectioning team because she lost it when I didn't want the main lights on. I don't like main lights. I've had no rationale. There's no explanation, there's no logic, and there's no therapy. I'm trying to give the Scunthorpe County Psyche Service advice so patients can be confident they're in safe surroundings and cared for. I've done surveys that say they don't think that. I never stop writing, I've got 6,000 pages of notes. I invite you to do a survey of patient satisfaction, and I have individual workers. I've done surveys of other patients' opinions, who they are confident in and not confident in. That's available for reference, but the county service are guilty of deliberate ignorance. Now, I want the Director of Revelation on the board to examine and confirm that my thought in 1976, when I wrote the title of a Bob Dylan song, "It's Alright Ma, I'm Only Bleeding," was correct, when I interpreted it as the song, not the title, and currently it says, "Dear YouTube, Sony, etc. please don't delete great performances. They're important for the future of civilization." Now, with that title, I meant the song, not the title. The title's only mentioned once in the long song, but I meant I'm surrounded by idiots. Apocalypse or Revelation? Deliberate ignorance. Now, staff are free to choose which category they're in, holograms and demons or human beings. I've got my idea from Robert Plant's Mighty Rearranger. He does a good version if I were a carpenter. Now, I am not giving up to try and introduce humanity. There's a line in the Bob Dylan song, "I made up my mind I had to go on." I've been struggling, and it's been documented. I'm not ill, but I've been put in a cupboard like a piece of meat, like patient number 6. I've been oppressed, and I am receiving counselling for unresolved trauma from a non-NHS hospital, for a non-NHS agency for unresolved trauma, and the non-NHS hospital have documented I've been done holistic damage. I would like the rationale, because I am getting information like it's coming out of a black hole. Apocalypse or Revelation? Now, it would be intelligent to listen to the song, "It's Alright Ma, I'm Only Bleeding," because there is a line in it, "Those who hate nothing except hatred." There is a line in it, "It's easy to see without looking too far that not much is really sacred." Now, I wish to specifically direct information to people with specific roles on the board, or create roles. Now, I wish to appoint people with specific responsibilities for certain aspects that can be improved. Director of Peace, Director of Propaganda, Director of Matrices, Director of Disconnecting Cables. I'll do a disco free of charge to improve morale in high-stress atmospheres. Now, that's for the Director of Spiritual Fulfillment of Patients. And the Director of Intellect of Staff. Because some are brain dead. Fiat voluntas tua in quella in terra. Amen. Now, I'm not a Latin teacher, I know what it means, not up to me to tell you. Spero, another Latin word. So is Fido and Amore. Now, I wish to direct some of this to the Director of Presentation of Staff struggling to fit through the eye of a needle. But Ormskirk should supply members of the board. They were homely, and you could follow the therapeutic and dedication values. And there are many people who were examples of humanity, and that's genuine. My letter of praise has gone further than you think. I've sent it abroad. Now, as a director of friendliness, and I am being sincere for the way I was treated at the back door when I arrived at Peop, despite the lying notes, Andrea should be Director of Friendliness. And the Director as example as a human being for people to copy or emulate is Karen. She's wonderful. She's amazing. She's a brilliant nurse. Now, when I was on Keats ward, I was surrounded by a restraint team of 18 uniforms. They didn't tell me what they wanted. Now, it looked like they wanted a fight. So I picked on the two biggest and that's what you do in a fight. And one of them went to his knees, I gobbed it, and another ran through the office into another ward. The rest just bowed their head, looked at each other and dispersed. Now, as a director of simplifying things, my care coordinator, Louise, and St. Louise is the patron saint of charity, she came from Nelson to the quiet room the following day and told me what she wanted. She wanted me lighter, so I'll give it her. She asked me for it politely. Now, a restraint team of 18 were hostile. They had the presentation of wanting a fight. They lost, 18 of them. But above all, is it correct to be hostile with an army in a hospital? It's unsettling for those watching. It's not atmospheric for a hospital, which is awful in ambience and entertainment. The ambience of sirens going off with armies running around in uniforms is threatening to patients. The director of simplifying things has a job to do. Louise asked me for it. They didn't ask me for it. For all I knew, they wanted a fight. How were I supposed to know what they wanted? They didn't tell me. Now that's something for the director of nonsense and comedy. Now the director of cowardice, I have somebody in particular in mind. Now, he can also be the director of fish fingers because of his last name. And this man, a copper called Craig, is hysterical, laughing at him, saying there's a light on upstairs and nobody in. I was sectioned by 2 lunatics. And it's not the first time, or it was the middle time of 3 sections. Now the first time, 26 people saw that doctor was trembling and unfit for work, and she didn't look at me. And the director of Nina Delno can be got from the care team, who have been described as reprehensible, so she knows who she is. Director of unreasonable bullying. I've got somebody very specific in mind. His named after a mountain rescue dog and used to work on keeps. Now, director of menial intellect can't spell his name, so immediately spells a name again afterwards, because he probably got it wrong the first time. And both words are 2 letters twice. Now, that proves it runs in the family. Now, director of the Nurse Ratchet School of Nursing, I have somebody very specific and dishonourable in mind. Director of following blind orders, there's somebody of that. Goering did that. Director of holographic uniforms, that's a werewolf. Director of sadism. Director of bringing souls to light to convert him into St. Paul for the atmosphere she brought when she came onto a wood after a dinner break that was in the dark. Director of angels. Director of sincerity. I've got people in mind for all of these because the board are brain dead. Director of confidence in humanity. I've got somebody in mind for that. Director of angelic presentation and support by prayer. Director of do what I say, not what I do, and I'm the boss, so I must be right. And I look like a boss, so I must be one. Somebody in mind for that. Director of lost purpose. Director of humanities. Director of culture. Director of grave cleaning. Director of disregarding patients' property. Director of guardian angels. Director of sweetness and stopping aggression at source. Director of being a bitch. Director of racism. Director of behaving like you're on crack, and that's a doctor. Director of rudeness, that's a doctor. Director of my memorial, and we've got a humorous one laid up. Director of disarming aggression with a smile. Director of useless and creating crises. Director of veterinary services. Director of bewilderment. Director of Savile Row. Director of Kundalini. Director of forcing surrender by charm. Director of pointless and having no purpose. Director of hostilities. Director of having no insight into showing your staff. Director of nonsensical therapy. Director of holistic damage. Director of deliberately causing an entire system to inflict damage in treatment. Director of nonsense and comedy, I mentioned that before, that's very important for spirituality. Director of sparking with inappropriate medication that makes you hallucinate. Director of gormlessness. Director of denying therapy. Director of biblical references. Director of hostile environment. Director of sympathy for the devil. Director of empathy. Director of checking facts. Director of dishonour. Director of selling souls. Director of seeing something is right after all. Director of encouragement. Director of humour. Director of bad examples. Director of drug dealing. Director of cruelty. Director of interactive communication. Director of assholes. Director of communion. Director of seeing all will be right in the end. Director of undemocratic policy. Director of making things up. Director of knowing the difference between staff and people. Director of seeing themselves from other people's points of view. Director of heavenly presentation. Director of displaying signs to stop aggression. Director of recognising individuality. Director of showing humanity. Director of exemplary nursing and dedication. Director of tolerance. Director of astral projection, and that's a patient. Director of public panic. Director of exemplary getting away with it. Director of being abused, and that's a patient. Director of courtesy. Director of dignity. Director of respect. Director of superfluous unnecessity. Director disturbing the peace. Director hiding in the air raid shelter. Director at answering why did you do it to be announced after the discussion. Director of ambience and entertainment. I'll do that. Director of the brain dead. One of the most successful roles. Director of physical needs. That reminds me. The halogen stained. I've got 8. I'm going to be an example now and be the director of participation. So, as my halogen's just dinged, and you might have heard it, I'm going to ask you what's brain and sounds like a bell. The answer's dung. I'm recording myself eat spare ribs. Talk amongst yourselves. To be continued. Some people say I'm fit to eat with pigs, others say I'm not. Director of losing it. Director of haunted patients. Director of distressing patients. Director of nastiness. Director of slothfulness. Director of rock and roll. They haven't got a director from the mind, and it's a psychic system. Director of listening. Director of choosing soundtracks with reference to Button Moon. Director of interpreting misunderstanding and their being taken as a diagnosis of the patient. Director of Sociopathic Reaction. Director of Disliking Patients. Some of these are already there, but they're experts. I think they're only chosen. Or everything turns they are, anyway. Certainly, the main one, the director who chooses them. Director of Religious Discrimination. Director of Tolerance. Director of Astral Projection. I've got the recording to prove that. Director of Public Panic. Director of Exemplary Getting Away With It. Director of the Brain Dead. Director of listening to Eric Clapton's line, "Before you judge me, take a look at yourself." Director of not covering tracks. Director of Sacrifice. Director of the Occult. Director of Worshipping False Gods. Meditate and pray at your leisure and decide for yourself. Director of Pointlessness. Director of Disgusting Neglect. Director of Unfounded Statements. Director of Contradiction. Director of Demoralising. Director of Deflating. Director of Recognising Supplying Human Needs. Director of Inappropriate and Inhuman Treatment. Director of Unexplained Deaths. Director of Caring and Recognising Things in Humanitarian Terms. Director of Human Resources. Director of Exemplary Reward Management. Bring her back. Director of Arseholes and Lack of Control. Director of Cyanide Administration and Keeping the Cards that Read Have Mercy on His Soul. Director of Scapegoats. Director of Kundalini Awakening and Unexplained Exorcisms. Director of Analysing How I Kept the Peace on Keats and on Churchill, and applying the lessons learned from history for the socially unaware. Director of Disturbing the Peace. Director of not recognising the cause and realising the symptoms are caused by the staff. Director of hypocrites. Director of doctors who are difficult to distinguish between demons or just bad doctors. Director of bad examples. Director of not listening. Director of causing patients to be attacked and supply corrupt notes. Even when she discharges them to another hospital. Director of expert military precision. Director of putting patients in cupboards and deliberate psychiatric abuse. And I've got 2 nurses on River Ward I can nominate for that. Director of ignoring patients' needs. Director of not bothering about meeting patients' needs. To be decided by a conclave at some point. Director responsible for oppressing human emotions and expressions and blocking imaginations. Director of unnecessary restraints. Director of supplying Nazi armbands. Director of the Swiss Navy. Director of subversive indiscipline. Director of negotiating peace. Director of heresy. Director of chilling. Director of apocalyptic reaction. Director of intelligence. That's the secret. Director of pomposity. Director of superfluous scenery. Director of breaking toes. Director of red herrings. Director of rationale. Director of honesty. Director of candour. Director of not mending things that aren't broken. Director of wanting to be worshipped. Director of uselessness, irresponsibility and holograms. Director of torture and torment. Director of sadistic loyalty. Director of solving crises put there by the crisis line. Director of checking the unexplained. Director of stalking hellfire. Director of excommunications. Director of trust. Director of being normal human beings. Director of confusion. And I know I've said it again, but we need more than one director of assholes. Director of biotapestry. Director of positive suggestions. Director of Sobibor mood induction. I have asked for interventions, finally got a non-sociopathic reaction to. what I did. The feces didn't get a sociopathic reaction when I wrote on the wall in feces, I have asked for interventions. They actually wrote down what I wrote. I got a sociopathic reaction from Lancashire Care Foundation Trust, and they were more interested in the discomfort it caused them. It's like the Nazi whose discomfort and the smell caused by him burning Holocaust victims is his only concern. This is a hope message to the holograms and demons to introduce humanity. Now, the county have restricted my communication, and they've tried to restrict and oppress my mind and improvement suggestions and freedom of speech, and deprive me of a better support from my friends and family in a way reminiscent of apocalyptic behaviour. I have tried to communicate my concerns and hopes, despite the holistic damage documented by a non-NHS hospital, for which I am receiving counselling from a non-NHS agency named after one of the retired closest friends. In spite of the cruelty and bullying, and the MP requesting that I'm budgeted to be treated outside the county for bullying and cruelty reasons, they insist on no humanity improvements, so I'm trying to introduce them by humanities. Now, I am concerned that nothing's been learned from history, and nothing has been learned from literature, because most of the wards in the harbour are named after playwrights, novelists and poets, except the one where I was last, that's named after a man who promised a land fit for heroes. Now, rationale, please. Director of Cosmetic Surgery, Director of Harlots, Director of Ignoring Dissatisfaction, Director of Ignoring the NHS Directive, Director of Ignoring the NHS Mandate, Director of Ignoring the Hippocratic Oath, Director of Ignoring Human Rights, Director of Ignoring Humanities, Director of Ignoring Lessons Learned from History, Director of Ignoring Recognisable Human Values, Director of Bad Behaviour by Example. It's a collective effort which they're very good at. Director for Staff Education, Director for reminding the staff that the education to benefit from goes back as far as from 4-year-old in school, and some don't have that maturity. Director of Boredom, Director of Chilling, Director of Sending Staff to Nursery, Director of Immaturity, Director for the Peaceful and Harmonious Use of Weapons, as heard by patients on the recording I gave to Dr. Tate on pen drive. Something to be considered by the Director of Gormlessness. I was on the PICU ward. They forgot to renew the sex name. That's illegal. The staff are so homeless. On September 17th, Smiley police came, shook my hand, said it's nice to put a face to the name. You don't need to be here. Either go home and come with us, please. And two sweet women brought me home to Burnley. Proves they trusted me. Proves they know it's all true. Director of Scribes and Pharisees. Director of Finishing the Tower of Babel. Director of Explaining the Therapy that he gave. Director of an example of a human being everybody will want to emulate, and I've got somebody in mind for that. Director of not being able to explain his motives and results. It's a line from a song, Visions of Johanna, about the night watchman asking whether or not it's them a hymn that's insane. Director of Intended Assassinations. Director of Culture, and I'm going to explain the apparent mathematical errors in one of the greatest books ever told, War and Peace. It was poetic, not a mistake. If you don't understand it, I'll explain it. Look it on the internet when I put it on. Of War and Peace, the truth's just twist. Its curfew gullet glides, upon four-legged forest plains, the cowboy angel rides, with his candle lit into the sun, though its glow is waxing black, all except when neath the tree of Eden. The lamppost stands with folded arms, its iron claws attached, to curves his hole where babies wail, though its shadow's metal badge. All and all can only fall with a crashing but meaningless blow. No sound ever comes from the gates of Eden. The savage soldier sticks his head in sand and then complains unto the shoeless hunter who's gone deaf but still remains upon the beach where hound dogs bathe and ships with tattooed sails heading for the gates of Eden. With a time-rusted compass blade, Aladdin on his lamp, six with utopian hermit monks saddle on the golden calf, and on their promises of paradise you will not hear a laugh, all except inside the gates of Eden. Relationships of ownership, they whisper in the wings to those condemned to act accordingly, and wait for succeeding kings, and I try to harmonise with songs the lonesome sparrow sings. There are no kings inside the gates of Eden. The motorcycle Black Madonna, two-wheeled Gypsy Queen, and her silver-studded phantom cause the grey flannel dwarf to scream, as he weeps to wicked birds of prey who pick up on its breadcrumb sins, and there are no sins inside the gates of Eden. The kingdoms of experience in the precious winds they rock, while paupers change positions, each one wishing for what the other has got, and the princess and the prince discuss what's real and what is not. It doesn't matter inside the gates of Eden. The foreign song that squints upon a bed that is never mine, as friends and other strangers from their fates try to resign, leaving men wholly, totally free to do anything they wish to do but die. And there are no trials inside the gates of Eden. At dawn my lover comes to me and tells me of her dreams, with no attempts to shovel a glimpse into the ditch of what each one means. At times I think there are no words but these to tell what was true, and there are no truths outside the gates of Eden. Definition of a cretin is a deformed idiot. An idiot is somebody who causes professional damage. Decide yourself who's got a deformed intellect. I can recognise a lot. There are no trials inside the gates of Eden. I've been 10,000 miles in the mouth of a graveyard, that's how it feels. That's when hard rain's gonna fall. Now, the song which I've quoted, It's Alright Ma, I'm Only Bleeding, I want you to think about in terms of my meaning in 1976, I'm surrounded by idiots. Now, I left this note, which did appear in my psychiatric notes. Currently, on YouTube, if you YouTube it, it says, Dear Google, Sony, etc. Please don't delete great performances. They're important for the future of civilization. Director of Suspense. Director of the Psycho Shower Scene. Director of Forcing Self-Defense. Director of Grave Cleaning. with reference to my explanation that I interpret this poem, and I didn't mean the title, I meant the long song. The title only appears once. Try and understand it with the benefit of humanities and humanity. Darkness at the break of noon, shadows even the silver spoon. The handmade blade, the child's balloon, eclipses both the sun and moon. To understand you know too soon, there is no sense in trying. Pointed threats they bluff with scorn, suicide remarks are torn. From the fool's gold-mouthed beast, the hollow horn plays waste of words, proof to warn that he not busy being born is busy dying. Temptation page flies out the door, you follow find yourself at war. Watch waterfalls of bitter roar, you fail to moment and lie before you discover that you just be one more person crying. So don't fear if you hear a foreign sound to your ear. It's alright, Ma, I'm only saying. As some war victory, some downfall, private reasons great or small, can be seen in the eyes of those that call to make all that shall be kept to crawl, while others say don't hate nothing at all outside hatred. Think about that. Disillusioned words like bullet spark, as human gods aim for the mark, made everything from toy guns and spark to flesh-coloured Christ that glow in the dark. It's easy to see without looking too far that not much is real and sacred. Respect the soul. While preachers preach of evil fates, teachers teach that knowledge waits, can lead to $100 plates, goodness hides behind these skates, but even the President of the United States sometimes must have to stand naked. And though the rules of the road have been lost, it's only people's schemes that you got to dodge. And it's alright, Ma. I can make it. Advertising signs that con you into thinking you're the one that can do what's never been done, that can win what's never been won. Meantime, life outside goes on all around you. You lose yourself, you reappear, you suddenly find you got nothing to fear. Alone you stand with nobody near, with a trembling distant voice unclear, struggling to sleep your ears to hear that somebody thinks they really found you. A question in your nerves is lit, yet there is no answer fit to satisfy you and show you not to quit, to keep it in your mind and not forget that it is not he or she or them or it that you belong to. Although the masters made the rules for the wise men and the fools, I got nothing more to live up to. For them that must obey authority, that they do not respect in any degree, who despise their jobs and destinies, speak jealously of them that are free, cultivate their flowers to be nothing more than something they invest in. While some on principles baptized to strict party platform ties, social clubs in drag disguise, outsiders they can freely criticise, tell nothing except who to idolise, and then say God bless him. While one who sings with his tongue on fire, gargles in the rat race square, bent out of shade from society's flyers, cares not to come up any higher, but rather gets you down in the hole that heats him. But I mean no harm, no but fault, on anyone that lives in the vault. But it's alright, Ma, if I can't please him. Old lady judges what people in pairs, limited in sex they dare, to push fake morals, insult and stare, While money doesn't talk, it swears. Obscenity who really cares. Propaganda, all it's phony. While them that defend what they cannot see, with a killer supplied security, it blows their minds most bitterly. For them that thinks their honesty won't fall upon them naturally, some life sometimes must get lonely. My eyes collide head on with stuffed graveyards. False gods I scoff, our pettiness which plays so rough, while cups I down inside handcuffs, kick my legs to crashes off, well say okay, I've had enough, what else can you show me? And if my thought dreams could be seen, they'd probably put my head in the guillotine. But it's alright, Ma. It's life and life only. I wish I had the heart of Jesus, blind Lemon Jefferson. It's not about how many Germans you kill, it's about how many people you set free. Mike Scott. According to Gospel according to Led Zeppelin, sometimes words have two meanings. Psyche Greek, soul and mind. Please consider remit to the psyche system. Read spirituality and intellect. When you're outnumbered and afraid to make a stand, make a stand. Oath to God, Queen and Country. 5th day of May 1975. I made up my mind I had to go on. Song, Isis. Album, Desire. Bought Lincoln County Road, Newark. 6575. By Nobel Prize for Literature winner. Announced 13/10 2016. Gary Billington, buried 13/10 2016. If you tolerate this, then your children shall be next. James C. Bradfield. God don't make promises he don't keep. Dylan. Eternity though, you might call it paradise. Dylan. One should never be where one does not belong. Dylan. Striking for the gentle, striking for the kind, striking for the guardians and protectors of the mind. Dylan. I can't think for you, you have to decide whether Judas Iscariot had God on its side. Dylan. But sometimes a man must be alone, and this is no place to hide. Dylan. May God bless you always. May your wishes all come true. May you always do for others, and let others do for you. Dylan. It sure does bother me to see my loved ones turned into puppets. Dylan. And don't go mistaking paradise for that home across the road. Dylan. What are you trying to overpower me with? A doctrine or a gun? Dylan. Judge others and you're actually judging yourself. Marley. Shine on your crazy diamond. Waters. Unrighteous doctors who give you pills that'll never cure your ills. Dylan. You who philosophize disgrace. Dylan. Thank Christ for the bomb. Dylan. Red herring, McPhee. Don't see them as men, see them as enemies of the king, you see. McPhee. I've got a patient's Magna Carta to be examined. There is no excuse for deliberate ignorance and refusal. There's a rationale for what I'm doing. I can explain it. Lacrimo, it's Latin. And there's a plaintiff request for this to be sent to the Director for Sadistic Loyalties. Amen.